Rockstars. Unser erster Themenblock ist AdTech und Programmatic. Deswegen begrüße ich zumindest für die, die jetzt hier sind, mit einem großen Applaus Paul H. Müller bei mir auf der Bühne. Paul, wo bist du? Kommst du zu mir?
Aber immer gerne doch.
Ich grüße dich.
Moin, moin.
Du bist Co-Founder und CTO von Adjust. Worüber sprechen wir heute?
Wir sprechen heute über Ad-Fraud, also die Risiken, die sich für unsere Advertiser ergeben und was man dagegen machen kann.
Was können die Leute mitnehmen? Was können die lernen?
Ganz praktische Sachen. Das heißt, wir reden erstmal, welche Arten gibt es überhaupt. Also wir machen so ein paar bisschen Basiswissen und dann schauen wir uns mal an, welche Gegenmaßnahmen gibt es überhaupt.
Ich freue mich. Das ist deine Bühne. Bitteschön.
Wunderbar, Dankeschön. Ja, nochmal moin moin an alle. Mein Name ist Paul. Vor 6 Jahren habe ich so eine kleine Firma gegründet, die Adjust heißt. Und was wir für unsere Kunden machen, ist Werbeeffektivitätsmessung, würde man im Deutschen sagen. Warte, der ganze Vortrag ist Englisch, ne? Okay, sorry, I was asked to do this in English. No worries. So, what we actually do is we measure the ROI of ad spend. So our clients have something like 25,000 apps, and they are buying advertisement for it from around 1,000 different traffic partners. Among them, for example, Google, Facebook, Snapchat, the kind of usual suspects. And what we do is we combine the data and attribute the users and measure their post-app engagement. So we can effectively determine how much money do you get back from your ad spend. And we're doing this for a lot of people because as of 6 years ago, when we founded, we were a small company, but nowadays we're not so small anymore. That means in 2017, we assume that the ad performance marketing space was around $17 billion total spend worldwide. And out of that, we tracked around $7 billion. So not so small anymore. But let's get to the topic of today, ad fraud. Since you're here, you're either worried about it as a topic that it might affect you, you have some morbid curiosity, or you heard that in 2020 it's going to be a $50 billion industry, second only to the drug trade, and you never heard of anyone getting capped by the ad cartel. So you may think, hey, I want to get in on this. So let's talk about scale a little bit. How big is the problem really? So we at Adjust have rejection filters, I'm going to talk about those later, that effectively prevent fraud from being paid out. And what we're seeing is that every day, right now, we reject over 500,000 of these attributions. Now you go, well, that sounds a lot, but what does that mean in money? On average, our advertisers pay around $3 for an attribution. So this means that's $1.5 million a day, every day, 365 days a year. That's a lot of money. It's over $500 million a year in fraud. And that's just for Just clients, and that's just for those that have all of our latest generation filters turned on, which is currently not a majority. So some of you are hopefully Just clients, I think. I would definitely encourage you to turn on a couple of new filters that I'm going to talk about in a second. But let's take 2 steps back. What actual types of fraud exist? What is it that you about when you buy advertisement for your app? What is kind of strange behavior that you should look for? Well, there's 2 categories that we'd like to put in the individual kind of methodologies of fraud. First one is what we call fake users or simulated user behavior, meaning the entire user using your app is not real, doesn't exist. This could be a range of different things. The easiest and cheapest to do option is to simply simulate a whole bunch of Android devices in the cloud using your app. We've actually seen simulators able to play games up to a certain level because that was where the reward was paid out. Thing that you've probably seen is a device farm somewhere in Southeast Asia where people sit in front of a huge board of devices and tap all day on things. So that's, of course, one type of these fraud. And another one that I'm going to talk about a little bit more in depth later is what we call SDK spoofing, which is where people cut out the middleman of running the app altogether and simply just simulate the measurement signals. The other type of fraud that is less known, but actually a huge problem, and specifically on Android, a gigantic problem, is what we call stolen attribution, or formerly organic poaching. Instead of getting the correct attribution for your user, a fraudster manages to game the attribution for you. Very common kind of type of this is click spamming. Click spamming basically means sending us as an attribution partners billions and billions of clicks and hoping for random matches with your users as they open the app. The matching chance is relatively low, but sending 1 billion clicks costs nothing, so you might as well just send 10 billion. And at that point, I'm getting a significant share of your organic users that you end up paying me for, which is very nice because there's a very good margin on your organic users if I sell them to you. And a very common type that we've now seen, and I'm going to talk about a little bit more later as well, is click injection on Android, which is a new type of fraud that utilizes a weakness in the Android operating system. And we've seen this inserting single clicks right before the app actually opens, and thus stealing attribution from any network and being able to vastly overestimate the influence of certain campaigns. But the real problem of fraud is not just that you're paying for it. You might as well say, look, if it's just 10%, I don't care, maybe it's not that bad, and I don't want to ruin my KPIs for that. However, the real problem is that you are also messing up your downstream metrics. Once you have fraudulent users within all of your measurements like retention, lifetime value, and all of these kind of things, these measurements become useless because now they also include a whole bunch of probably fake users. For example, when we talk about simulated users, we've seen those when our clients set an incentive and a payout to the network at, let's say, 7-day retention. And the fraudsters were not very clever, so they made all of their simulated apps, all the simulated bots come back every day for 7 days straight. So they had a 7-day retention of 100%. Now you say, hey, that's a great retention rate. The problem is, if you're not filtering this out from your traffic, now all of your metrics look weird. You have these 100% retention users spread out across your entire user base, and you no longer can have a reliable benchmark. Meaning you're getting completely useless metrics down the line from pretty much anything else as well. You can no longer tell what is a good and what is a bad campaign. So it is very important to understand that not you're just paying for fraud, the fraud is also messing up all of your downstream metrics. Imagine you want to retarget users and you're actually retargeting all the wrong users. You're suddenly retargeting complete users and spending money on it just because they perform very well and you didn't filter them out of your inventory. You'd be actually wasting double the money on those guys. What does that mean for you? That means that when we're talking about fraud prevention, it is very, very important to understand the difference to fraud detection, specifically as the term gets kind of muddled up lately, right? There's a lot of companies saying, oh, we do stuff about fraud prevention, and what they actually mean is detection or reporting. So how do you understand the difference? It's fairly easy. If I give you a report that says, last month you spent $1 million on fraud, you should probably want to get that back from the networks. Good luck. That now means that A, as we just said, all of your downstream metrics, everything else that you measured is just garbage. B, you now have to go to the network and argue with them to get your money back. Problem is they probably pay out their publishers weekly, so they're already gone with that money. And you're going to have a huge amount of friction with your network. And you're only going to do this so often until there's a certain level that you just accept as, okay, I'll live with it. Right? And there's so many third-party tools nowadays focused around fraud, and I know some of you are using those, that are saying they are focusing on fraud prevention, when in fact all they do is just report it to you. But the problem is that it's entirely useless. Yes, it can tell you that you should probably buy this or that traffic anymore, but it's important to understand when I tell you, oh, in this network there's a huge amount of fraud, and you say, well, then I'll not buy from this network anymore. The problem rarely is the network. The problem is usually the publishers of the network, and they can switch networks simply as fast as you can. So by the time that you decided not to buy from network A, but you'd rather buy from network B, the fraudster has simply started selling his stuff to network B as well, and you're just back to square one buying the same fraud. Fraud prevention actually hinders the attribution that happens, meaning the network never gets a signal to tell you, hey, you can now charge this CPI, or you can now charge the client for this action. It means that we as an attribution company say, no, this does not get paid out. We tell the network, you're not getting money for this install because it came from a data center, or because that's not a real user. It's a simulator, or any of these kind of things. And that means that when you look at the metrics in our system, it simply means that's what you would have spent. Thank God you didn't. right? And it severely changes how all of your metrics actually look later on, because we filter out all of this stuff in real time before you actually pay the money for it. And it is very, very important to understand the difference. Now let's talk about the latest innovations. So what are the fraudsters up to lately? Like, what's the new stuff that you guys have to deal with? Because, like it or not, as soon as you're buying any inventory for your mobile app and you're trying to promote it, this concerns you pretty directly. So the first thing that we've been seeing lately, and it's a very interesting technological feat, is what we call SDK spoofing. So in that case, the fraudster actually simulates the advertiser's SDK. So they simulate, and they don't actually run an app, they don't even run a phone, they just run the requests to the web service, and they've perfected how to actually recreate the original requests, including a lot of security measures they're able to simulate, and they're running them from many devices. So those of you who have some battery saver app on their Android phone, you're currently most likely running this too, right? And what they do is they fake the request to the ad network, meaning they fake the ad request, the click, the going to the store, and they've also figured out how to fake our requests to our SDK. They decompile the apps from our clients, stole the proprietary secret from it, the traffic. This prompted us to vastly improve the security and authenticity of our SDK by adding cryptographic signatures with secrets that have a different technological way of integrating into the app, and are much, much harder to actually pry out from within the app. And that allows us now to actually classify this traffic. And what we've seen when we turned on those filters, that some of our clients had individual campaigns with up to 90% spoofed traffic, meaning like 90% of this just wasn't real at all. That basically happens every time your name is big enough to be noticeable by anyone that would figure out that you spend a lot of money on advertisement and you're not just buying Google or Facebook. This is happening to you right now. Statistically speaking, there's no chance you don't have this problem. And this affects Android and iOS alike. The second one is a little bit more elaborate, but even more fun, because people found out that there is a functionality in Android that sends what is called a broadcast every time an app gets installed. So when you install Angry Bird on your Android phone, the Android OS tells every other app, hey, I just installed Angry Birds. That was used, or that was meant for some kind of launcher facilities, and that was a pretty nascent kind of ability in Android. No one really used this for much, but it was always there. Now someone smart figured out, if I can listen to when an app gets installed, that is before the app actually finished downloading and the user could have opened it. So the measurement part has no chance yet to attribute this user. Now, they basically scroll through or crawl through all kind of advertisement and remember where the advertisement points. So they remember the original click and where it points. And what they do when, let's say, it happens that Angry Bird gets installed, they look up at the catalog if they've seen any advertisement for Angry Birds and click it in that very second. And what that does, it creates a single click that is incredibly close to the first app open, meaning they win the attribution. Any legit attribution is being beaten because it's impossibly close to the actual download of the app. The problem, however, is that just saying, oh, easy, I'll filter all installs where the click and the first app open are very close together. It doesn't quite work like that, because many times people don't open the app right away after download. Actually, it's some kind of bell curve distribution where only 10% of all users open the app within the first 10 seconds. Everyone else takes a little bit longer. Meaning, if you would just say, okay, anything, first app open to click to short, gets filtered out, you would leave 90% of this fraud within your system, which is a big problem. Because what I want to tell you is that we can currently see on Android that we estimate around 25% of all attributions on Android are currently click injection. That means that we need a better filter. And one of the things that we got Google to do, which was very, very nice from them, is to give us a second broadcast that now also tells you when the user clicked the download button. And now you can compare those two and can see if there's a click happening after the user clicked the download button. It becomes very, very easy to understand that this is click injection. And we've built this filter, we updated our SDK for it, And as I said, we can see that around 25% of all attributions coming into our system are click injection. So if you're currently running any advertisement for Android and you're not reading this brand new Google referrer, you probably have quite a problem. So let's sum up what we talked about. What is important to understand when you want to get rid of fraud? The very, very first step is that you are clear of the difference between prevention and just reporting or detection, right? Many tools try to pull the wool over your eyes and give you some kind of false sense of security, when in fact they're only telling you you do have a problem and not actually fix it. It is imperative that you actually understand it. The second thing is transparency. You don't just want some black box that rejects fraud and then just says, well, I rejected some fraud. You want transparency on what's actually going on. You want a raw feed of the data of what's being rejected and why, so you can have a look, and actually your networks that you're working with can actually also have a look. And as I said, SDK spoofing is a giant problem nowadays, so you do definitely want to make sure that whatever SDK you're using for measurement has a security feature, something like the cryptographic hash that can ensure that fraudsters can't attack the SDK requests themselves. And last but not least, what we've just seen for the Android marketer, it is very important to read all the new signals that can protect you from click injection. All right, and that's it. Definitely thank you for your time, and I hope you guys learned something, and well, see you soon. Our booth is just down the line, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for opening our stage on this Friday morning. The next speakers are ready? Everybody's there? Okay. We're talking about the importance of clean advertising. Please welcome Chairman and Chief Executive of Nichts. He is Pierre Chapat. Welcome, Pierre.
Good morning.
The stage is yours. You're welcome.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you in Hamburg today. You may have seen the news recently. In the last days, we announced our last year results, and we grew 50%, up to 281 million euros of revenue. Why is that? Why are we growing so fast? Because we are offering a powerful alternative to YouTube and Facebook when it comes to video advertising. We stand for quality, and we are promoting what we call a clean advertising ecosystem. What does that mean, a clean advertising ecosystem? Well, let's listen to customers. Let's listen to Mark Pritchard, the Chief Brand Officer of P&G, who is saying it's time to clean up the media supply chain. It's time for more accountability and more transparency in the market. And it's true, we all know that our market is plagued with serious issues that we must address. The biggest challenge being probably viewability, fraud, and brand safety. Advertisers want something very simple. They want their ads to be seen by humans in a safe environment. Isn't it basic? Isn't it totally legitimate? But you know the situation. Let's start by viewability. Here are the figures for viewability in Germany. Basically, only 50% of the ads are viewable. Would you buy a car if you have one chance out of two to get it? Certainly not. Why ads would be different? That's why at Nichts we invented 5 years ago Outstream, which is a new way to present video advertising. It should be a video if the technical team can launch it, which is a new way to present video advertising. as a content. Advertising, if it's well targeted and if the creative is good enough, is nothing else than a content. And the user must be free to consume this content or to ignore it if he's not interested. With Outstream, we have been including video advertising inside the articles together with the most prestigious media all around the world. It has deeply changed the market. It has been adopted by 65% of the top 300 Comscore publishers in the world. Publishers such as Time Inc., Washington Post, Reuters, Tribune Publishing, Business Insider in the US, Evening Standard, Trinity Mirror, The Independent in the UK, La Repubblica in Italy, Corriere della Sera in Spain, El País, Il Mundo, in this country, Bild, Spiegel, Die Welt, and many others. It has been a revolution for video advertising because it's a user-friendly format which is viewable by design. It only launches when the video is in view. As a result of this massive adoption by our publisher partners, Tids is able to achieve a massive reach. The reach in these countries that we are able to achieve is much higher than YouTube and Facebook. We are reaching 95% of the users in Germany. This is massive. And we are reaching these users exclusively through premium publishers with a great user experience. No forced advertising. While we are talking about numbers, I want to show you one number and maybe to ask you what it is. 22%. What can it be? I think you won't believe it. This is the percentage of fraud in the US, measured by the ENA, which is the National Association of Advertisers. 22% of all ads are fraudulent in the US. That's crazy and totally unacceptable. While we can beat fraud by ensuring transparency. Advertisers must know where their ads are running. At Tids, we always provide the list of all the sites where we are displaying the ads for our customers. Ad text is a very good initiative to allow the publishers to declare who are their official partners. And we can also, and we do, pre-filter all the impressions that are offered to programmatic buyers before referring these impressions. And we do it at Tids in real time with Double Verify. So fraud is not something we cannot eliminate. At Tids, our fraud rate is below 1%. Now let's talk about brand safety. Why do we have all these YouTube scandals? You heard about these scandals. The pedophilia, the neo-Nazi. Why is this happening? Why aren't they able to avoid showing ads next to this kind of content? This is due to the technology. The companies whose business is to track brand safety, such as AAS or Moat, they look at the text on the pages. They are unable to analyze video content. So as on a platform like YouTube, you have millions of videos, it has to be manual. And even if YouTube is trying to hire thousands of students to try to moderate this content, at the end of the day, it always fails. So by definition, a brand-safe environment is better guaranteed by a text environment than by a pure video content. And our brand risk at TID is below 1% again. This is not our number, this is integral ad science measuring us. It cannot be zero because we're working with news publishers, for instance, and sometimes the news are not very good, so they consider it as being not totally brand safe. Also at television, nobody is making the difference. When you have ads before the news, sometimes the news are not good, and they still show ads. But what we do is that we filter through keyword filtering the kind of content that the brands don't want to appear next to. Let's take an example. I am an airline. Obviously, I don't want to show up my ad on a page talking about an accident, a flight accident. So it's systematically, for these kind of customers, we eliminate those keywords who could hurt their image. You can achieve the best brand safety by combining outstream and premium publishers and keyword filtering, because then you are in an environment where you can analyze the content, analyze the text, eliminate the content that you don't want to appear next to, so that at the end of the day, your ad will never appear on a content like this one. Now I was saying viewability, fraud, brand safety, these are the basics. But clean advertising is also about providing a great user experience. As you know, at TIDS, our advertising formats are non-intrusive. This is the outstream format. But we have been investing a lot into improving the TV copies to adapt them to the mobile screen, to leverage the interactive capabilities of the mobile, and also to offer personalized ads leveraging data. So I have a few videos I want to show you, a few creatives, where we are leveraging our internal tools, our studio, to improve TV copies and make them a great user experience on mobile. This time, talking to the technical team, I hope the videos will work. So you see an example from Kiko. I'm not sure it works. Actually, it doesn't. Are you sleeping at the tech team? Well, it's a pity, but you can. Okay, sorry. So it works here. Okay. Here we are. In the middle, you have the TV copy. What we do is that we include, as you see, interactive features, which allows the user to play with the content. We also reinforce the branding. So at the end of the day, there is much more engagement from the user and a better branding impact. We can also leverage existing TV copies to show up a product catalog, to include a mini site inside the creative. As you see with this campaign for Mont Blanc. This is the kind of thing that you can do on mobile that you cannot do on television. This is the value added of displaying video ads, interactive video ads on a mobile screen. You can do all kinds of things depending on the KPIs of the brand. You can drive customers to store, showing them where is the closest shop if they want to buy the product. And we don't only reinvent video advertising, we also bring innovative formats to display. Let me show only one example. It's a campaign for Louis Vuitton. You know, display ads are often of very bad quality. But why don't we offer gorgeous user experiences like this one, leveraging, you know, the gyro from the smartphone? So when you move your smartphone, you create this kind of effect. Very eye-catching, very high branding impact. Now, as a conclusion, I want to share with you what we are doing with some of our global partners. We are global partners of the likes of Samsung, Microsoft, Richemont, Gucci, Sony. So let me show you what we do for Sony. The future is that the content of the ad will be personalized. Not everyone will see the same ad. Today we are better and better at targeting, but we still show the same ad to everyone. Isn't it a pity? So what we are doing now with these brands is that we are leveraging the data that we have for each user to present a different ad. The way it's done is that we take their creative assets, we cut them into 2 to 3 second shots, we catalog the shots, so that we see this one is showing the product, this one is showing the user of the product, the family, whatever, outside, and then we match each individual piece of content with a particular data point. And when we run the campaign, in real time, we compose a personalized ad for each user. Here is the result.
Rated RP to M.
So, Gary, we're looking for someone who's cool under pressure. A quick thinker. Someone who won't back down from a big challenge. Does that sound like you, Gary?
Yeah.
PlayStation, the best place to play.
PlayStation.
So you see the content is suited in this example for 3 different kind of customers: action gamer, a sports fan, or a first-person shooter gamer. And at the end of the ad, we promote different games because these users play different games and may be willing to buy the PS4 for different reasons. We strongly believe that this is the future. This kind of real-time creative building will really allow us to deliver on the promise of the internet advertising, which is advertising should be one-to-one, should be suited to personal interests, and this will be achieved thanks to data and creative tools as the ones I just showed you. Well, you understand that at Kids we are pretty busy reinventing advertising. We are now close to 700 people on board, having started at 5 people in 2011. And we continue to grow at a very big rate, building this powerful alternative to YouTube and Facebook. Thank you.